So welcome. Sorry that we didn't get to really connect today, but I want to just take kind of the next 20 minutes just to go through kind of the key things I wanted to talk about in that presentation. Now, I'm in the process, they're moving my office tomorrow, so I apologize for my background of boxes and stuff like that. So anyhow, when it comes to early literacy, the first thing that we really have to understand is that I'm going to jump that for now, is that our brains are these massive information processing systems. And whenever we think about anything that goes with education, we really have to have some basic understandings of how our brains work. And the first thing we have to understand is that we first bring information in, and that information gets put onto a desk. And this desk has a cool name. It's called working memory. And desks vary in size from very small desks to really large desks. Bigger the desk, more things you can think about in the moment and hold there. So for example, if you're teaching a math lesson and you're saying, and you give like 5 different steps, well, each of those 5 steps have to be held on that desk. Now, if a person has a smaller desk, then a couple of those things might fall on the ground. They might only hold on to 1 or 2 things. Students who have working memory difficulties are often or notorious for forgetting because they only hold on 1 or 2 pieces and then start forgetting the other pieces. So working memory is really important. The other thing that's important about working memory is that it's also the place that we need to use to be able to solve problems. Actually, not solve problems, but it's the space we need to help solve the problem. So, example, if I ask you what's 1 plus 1, you're probably going to say 2. But when we look at working memory, you have to hold 1 plus 1, those facts. Then you have to access the plus sign going, that's an operation. Then you have to actually carry out on your desk that operation. And so for things that aren't very automatic, then they take a lot of attention. So when learning how to read, working memory is critical because working memory is basically all used up in trying to figure out what individual words are. And if you are not very proficient or very fast at reading, or what we call automatic at reading, then all of your working memory is involved in the looking at the sounds and trying to figure out what the words are, and there's no room left over for comprehension. So working memory, we're going to come back to that a lot through everything we do. The next one is processing speed. This is the speed at which we move information around, because processing speed hooks up to our long-term memory, or the filing cabinets. And what's really important here is that if processing speed is moving at a slow speed, then it takes a student longer to store information or longer to retrieve it. So often students who have processing speed challenges, what we see is they need many more repetitions of the same information because each repetition they kind of put a little bit away, a little bit away, a little bit away. The other thing that we often see is when we ask a student who has processing speed challenges, if we ask them, it takes them a lot longer to retrieve it, and often we go on to the next student and we don't actually give them time. Then we have reasoning, which is actually solving the problems that are on the desk, and reasoning can do this either through language, verbal reasoning, or nonverbal reasoning. It's kind of more like kind of the true intelligence. It's all intelligence, but really kind of what we think of intelligence is. This is where we come up with novel approaches to be able to solve problems. And the last thing is the boss, and what his job is to basically keep everybody in line, tell them what they're supposed to be doing and what they're not supposed to be doing. When students are in attention, then it's their boss that's not present right now, and so their brain's allowed to do whatever they want to do. So there's those things. So, quick question. What's this? No, it's not a horse. It's a frog. What's this? Yes, it's a watch. And now? Yes, it's still a watch. And now? Yes, it's still a watch. No matter how we rotate that sucker in space, it's always a watch. And our brains are amazing because our brains from a very early age start to look for features around items. And as they learn the features of those items, it is able to quickly recognize that object no matter how it's oriented in space. And the brain learns very early on is if I change the orientation of something, it doesn't actually change what it is. So this is a Tim Hortons cup, and no matter how I rotate it or move it around, can't move it upside down because it has liquid in it, no matter how I move it around, it's always a Tim Hortons cup. So our brains learn that an object is an object is an object, and we have some specific sensors right in the back of our brain, right here, occipital lobe, that detects diagonals and lines and curves. And we've actually seen this through cats, kind of cut the back of their brains off, put little electrodes in them, show them lines and different pictures, and we can see what parts of the brain line up. So we have some very specific detectors for basic features. And then they go to school. What's this? Yes, it's a P. And what property does it have? Yes, the plus sound. And what about this? Yes, it's a D. And what does it have? The dis sound. And this, the B, and has the bus sound. The B property. And this, right, it's the Q and has the quest sound. So suddenly what happens? We send students to school, and their brains go, holy macro, what are you doing to me? Because now, no matter how I look at these balls and sticks, the value of them continues to change. And so suddenly the brain starts to have a hard time to be able to lock onto the letters of it, because they're all the very similar features there, sticks and balls, all just moved around a little bit. And to be able to start to identify those as unique items that have unique properties, the brain has to start to do a lot of additional work, because it's always known a Timmy's is a Timmy's is a Timmy's. But that's not the case when it comes to language. And this is where we see a lot of problems beginning to emerge. And that's why having to spend a lot of time, especially with Jolly Phonics and that, is really, really important to ensure that letter consolidation takes place. Because if you are still getting your B's and P's mixed up, or your P's and Q's, or even your H's and B's, then we really, that leads to a lot of confusion. So our brains were wired, were not really meant to learn how to read and write. In fact, some would say that we have damaged our brains when we learned how to read and write, because the parts that are used in the reading are not usually associated with each other. So when we put students in individuals into fMRI study machines, and those who are able to read versus those who are not able to read, we can actually see that their brains are different, and because of this we can actually see what's involved within reading. So when it comes to it, we have the back piece right here, which is the orbital occipital lobe, and what it's involved is that's where feature detection are. Frontal lobe, this is where sound features are turned into sound. So letters are recognized here. Those letters are translated into sounds here and blended together, which go up to here to actually figure out what those, finish blending them together and figure out exactly what the word is. So there's two routes that our brains are working on. One called the phonological loop. So when I see the word break, I don't know that it's break. I see it as b-r-e-a-k, break. So I have to first recognize all those letters, convert those letters into sounds, blend those sounds together to get larger units, and finally get a word and access our lexicon, which is our dictionary for the words we know. So break means, oh, I fell down and broke a bone and it hurts and need to get a cast. And this is a very long route in the Bay Area, a very long route. Sorry, it's 2 in the morning, so my articulation right now is not working as good as it should be. On the other hand, then we have the orthographic system. Now, the orthographic system is where I see a word and I know it. This is a very automatic reading. So I see the word break, I automatically know what it is and recognize it and know that I fell and broke my arm. So suddenly, this is a much more proficient system, and this is what we want students to get, because when we actually look at it, you look in, you see what the word is, and you immediately figure out what the word is, the meaning of the word. Whereas the other system went all the way to the front and then back. So it's doing a lot more traveling within the brain to be able to just recognize what that word is. So orthographic or sight vocabulary or automatic reading, all the same thing, is really what we want to get students to get to. So let's just really try quick and test out your reading abilities. Now this might not work because it's a video, but we'll try. A word's going to pop up on the screen. And as that word pops up on the screen, I want you to basically try and figure out what that word is as fast as possible. Here you go. On your mark, get set, go. What was the word? Yeah, it was hospital. Very good. You have good orthographic recognition because of the time sampling of this video and only the 5 millisecond presentation of the actual slide itself. You were able to recognize what that word is, and so you got it. So excellent. Now we're going to try this again. This time, trying your phonological processing. Stare at the screen. Here comes the word. What was it? Yeah, psychology, the way that it should have been written. See, the problem is, if you're stuck in the phonological system, then this is kind of what reading's like. You might want to try to read this out loud to yourself, as you'll find it can be quite challenging. If you want to keep trying it, you can pause it. So students who have reading challenges don't see the page looking like this, or students who are just beginning readers don't read the page like this. However, they are in the process where they have to convert every single word to sounds, blend those sounds together to get words. And what happens is so much energy goes in trying to figure out what each individual word is that they don't have a clue what they've just read. And so therefore they have to go back and reread the same words over and over and over, trying to get the meaning out of it. Here's another one. If phonics is so fundamental to our ability to make meaning from text, as so many claim, why can we read and understand the next two paragraphs so easily and so quickly? So again, just read these to yourself and you'll see how nicely phonetic they are, and therefore we understand them. Even though there's lots of misspellings. Good. So here, try this one. Count the number of F's in the following text. On your mark, get set, go. How many were there? Yeah, I think there were 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a one down here. Yeah. So you can see very quickly, and I even missed one. So it's hard. So if you're with some buddies, get into groups of 2 or 3. And we're not going to do this one. So when it gets to reading, reading is really a combination of a whole bunch of skills coming together. On the one side, we have all of our oral language skills, and this makes up, we have to have oral language. On the other side, we have all the decoding skills, and this is all the information of actually how to read. And those two things have to be working together to get reading comprehension. If something's not working on either side, then comprehension fails. For example, if you don't have a good vocabulary, if you don't know a lot of words, then how are you going to understand the words that you actually do read? So having these two sides are really, really important. Often in First Nation areas, we find vocabulary and knowledge building as two fundamental areas that are problematic. Well, actually for a lot of ELL students, it's very problematic. written expressions the same. We have both vocabulary and the print concepts coming in, and we have to look at these individually, and they're also very systematic in the way that they develop. These will not develop until this level is developed. So learning to read is really a bottom-up approach here, where you start off in the lower and you keep building the skills up, but you need to do it at both sides at the exact same time. And we know what the stages are because we can actually document them. We can document them in terms of actually seeing what they are. And the first one is more the phonetic area. And here's a little video.
Uh-oh. It's gonna fall down. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You knocked it off the tray.
So you can hear Rachel here imitating the sounds back of her language. Her mom's talking to her and she's imitating them back. And what we know through research is the first 8 months of life, really what a child's trying to do is try and distinguish between what is just noise in this world and what is actually language. Because when you think about it, our ears aren't actually programmed to recognize language. They recognize sound, auditory sounds coming into them. And the brain is what has to actually figure out what is language and what's not. And actually right here, this is your language processing zone of your brain. And it gets developed during those first 8 months. There's some really good research that says mothers should actually talk to their, say, basically 2,000 words every 30 minutes to their newborns to be able to help develop their language ability. Also, a quiet home with lots of language is much better than having the radio on the background or TV on the background or being next to a construction site. Excuse me. All those things have an impact. Now, as a person gets through this year, then they go into concepts of print. And here's a okay, that video is not going to work. So based on that triangle that we looked at, then different things are important. Early on, a lot of it is phonological awareness and identifying the letter sounds. That is the big thing that you're doing during this phase of development. The next phase is the decoding. And in decoding, what you're really doing is you're translating the sounds into, or the sounds of your language onto letters, and then translating the letters into sounds. And again, we have a different pie for that. Then it's fluency, getting more automatic. And again, a different pie for this. All these pies can be found on the Balanced Literacy website, and I'm going to put a link there for you. And the last is the looking at the final stage, which is being able to read to learn. And so at this point, I'm able to read, and now I'm going to continue to learn. And so therefore, the majority of your time is spent on reading comprehension, writing processes at that point, and also vocabulary is the last one, and knowledge building. So nowhere here do you see needing to work on phonics with students, because they should be having that developed. So I'm going to leave it here, and we'll build on some strategies, and we'll talk more. I'll make another recording tomorrow to be able to build on what we started.